Hey guys, today I'm out in Spain finally driving the Polestar 4. I can't tell you how it drives yet. You'll have to wait about a month for that video to come out, but we can talk about the rest of the Polestar 4 lineup, especially now that we know pricing. This is going to start around $55,000, go on up to around $83,000 if you get carried away with options. And this model here is towards the upper end of the pricing ladder on the Polestar 4 lineup. Probably around $80,000 as we see right here, including destination. Up front, we have the latest design theme from Polestar with the split blade headlamp design. Actual headlights are down there lower. These are the daytime running lamps and the turn signals there. You'll notice that the front end doesn't quite look like a Polestar 2. There is some family resemblance, but it's not exactly the same. And actually, I might as well bring you over here to a Polestar 2 so you can see the difference in the front end design. This is what the refreshed Polestar 2 looks like up front. You can see that they've really highlighted the active safety sensors up front in the Polestar 2. We don't see that in the 4. And that's because the Polestar 4 is going to use more of a camera-centric setup. So 11 cameras all the way around, including those 2 on the side view mirror, 1 pointed there back at the lane lines, and then 4 forward view cameras, 1 in the nose of the vehicle, and then 3 behind the windshield. Don't worry, there is also a radar sensor and a whole bevy of ultrasonic sensors all the way around the vehicle. So unlike some companies like Tesla, which have abandoned radar, Polestar thinks that radar is absolutely essential for the autonomous braking performance especially. Now let's go around the side of the vehicle because that's the other thing to know. The Polestar 4 is not related at all to the Polestar 3, or actually the Polestar 2 either. 3 models completely unrelated. This was designed from the ground up to be a coupe SUV, if you will. So we have this sort of coupe line right there. To me, it actually looks more like a sedan or a sportback or a liftback, and I think that's just fine. Probably the bigger difference between this and the Polestar 3 is the ground clearance. We have about 6.5 inches of clearance here instead of the approximate 8 inches that we find in the 3. Of course, it is definitely a performance-oriented vehicle. So we have 265 40 R22s. These are huge wheels and tires. And of course, this model also has the optional Brembo brake package. Back here, we find a design that gives me a lot of Porsche vibes, and I don't think that's a bad thing at all. We have the big light pipe that runs from one side all the way to the other, amber turn signals in the back, and then, of course, the most controversial feature in the Polestar lineup: no rear window. Instead, we have yet another camera on top. Interesting twist. When this hatch is open, if we open this hatch, you can actually still see out the back. And that's because of the camera's position right there and the way they're using that. It actually will look right through that little opening right there, so you can still see behind if, for instance, you're going to Home Depot and you get a big barbecue and the hatch has to stay open for whatever reason. You obviously don't have to worry about exhaust fumes because there's no exhaust. Now, the cargo area itself, it's going to be a little bit less boxy and less practical than the Polestar 3, but it's actually right around the same size. There's not too much difference in terms of some of the dimensions on the vehicle, the 3 to the 4. Right now, this cargo area is in its lowest height position. The floor there, I should say, is in its lowest height position, but you can also pull off this little divider, and then you can put some of those larger items through there into the interior if you wanted to. Now, speaking of the interior, let's go ahead and take a look in there now. No modern EV would be complete without an enormous pane of glass, so of course we find one here. There's also going to be an electrochromatic roof option if you want. Taking a look up front, you'll notice the big difference between this and the Polestar 2 and 3, and that's that we have a horizontal format display in the middle of the dashboard. It does support full Apple CarPlay integration, in case you're wondering, and it is wireless. The software is very similar to what we find in the other Polestar models with some differences. You can move the map across there and the widgets will automatically resize. Bunch of different apps can be installed, as you can see there from the App Store, and lots of different options to choose from with lots of good animation and actually really snappy responses. Outside of the Tesla lineup, I would say this is probably the most responsive infotainment system that I have used recently, and that's a big departure from the Polestar 2, where the look is nice, but sometimes the transitions can be a little bit slow. Now, on the climate control side of things, if you're not a fan of controlling your air vents on the screen, you might want to look at a different model because that's how all the air vents around the vehicle are controlled. They're really slim and they're really clean looking in the dashboard as a result, but I think I'd rather have just a little knob there so I could adjust them myself. There's lots of premium material going on the dashboard and on the doors, fabric inserts right there across the top, lots of soft touch materials all the way down the dashboard. We have a big air vent right there in the middle, Qi wireless charging mats, cup holders there, this big play pause knob, that's for the infotainment system, and of course lots of storage under that center console as well. The seat design, that's a little bit different than we find in the other Polestars. They look similar, but we have a headrest that's not adjustable, yellow shoulder belts, they're height adjustable of course for the driver and front passenger. I think that the seats in the 3 are just a little bit more comfortable than the ones in the 4, but I haven't been able to spend more than a day in either of these vehicles. Over on the driver's side of things, we have a full color LCD instrument cluster with moving map display. That's kind of a nice touch right there. And then above that, we have a full color heads-up display. So if you want an EV with both of those features, this is one of the few that will offer that. This is part of the driver monitoring system, thanks to all the cameras around the vehicle and a future LiDAR system that is coming to the 4. You should be able to get not just a hands-free driving assistant system, but a hands-free and eyes-off-the-road driving assistant system. The steering wheel, that's a little bit different than in some of the other models. We have a flat bottom there, touch buttons on the side. And here's a better look at the driver's seat. These feature seat massage and a lot of adjustability as well. Rear seat headroom is pretty generous for a coupe SUV thanks to the really low seating position. You'll definitely notice this is a very reclined, relaxed seating position in here. And that's part of why the legroom figures aren't quite as generous as we find in some of the competition. Remember that legroom is a calculated measure from your feet to your knee and then back to your hip point. So if you're sitting very upright in a vehicle, you'll actually get larger legroom figures, even though your distance between the seats is actually going to be about the same. And that's really what's going on here. We have this more relaxed, more reclined seating position. In terms of headroom, I have about an inch left. As long as this rear seat is in its most upright position, we have a power recline mechanism, and its most reclined position, my head's almost touching that section of the ceiling. I actually don't think that's too much of a problem, and it certainly feels more generous as far as the room back here than a decent number of the competitors. Because this is a dedicated EV platform, we have a almost completely flat floor. It's not completely flat because some of the battery control system cables, etc., run through there, so they decided to give us just that tiny little bit of a bump there. I have lots of room here in the middle seat position. It's actually a little bit further forward and higher off the ground than the outboard seats. You'll really notice that in the headroom. My head is almost touching the ceiling in that position. For the full video on the Polestar 4, be sure and stay tuned. Hit that subscribe button down there at the bottom of your screen because that video is coming up in about a month. But at the moment, again, we know pricing. It's going to run from about $55,000 on up to about $83,000, depending on the options you get. This model, it's somewhere under $80,000 because it does not have the optional tow package with the retractable hitch. That's about $2,500. It doesn't have the electrochromatic roof, and it doesn't have the option where these lower sills become body colored. So if you want a slightly sleeker, more sedan-like look, you want to check those particular option boxes. I do like the way that those options make the Polestar 3 and 4 look. This is a little bit different than the 3. It's obviously less boxy, but if you're looking for something sleeker, sportier, etc., you definitely want to take a look at this. I can't talk about how it drives, but you all can read between the lines. This has a regular steel spring suspension and a lighter curb weight than the Polestar 3. That has a standard air suspension, and it's heavier and a little bit bigger dimensionally. So that should really give you a clue as to where these two models fit into the lineup. This is certainly sleeker, sexier, more modern, and roomier on the inside than the Polestar 2, but obviously it is also a bit more expensive. Let me know what you think about that, and what do you think about the appropriate competition to this? Which models would you cross-shop against the Polestar 4? Do you think that this could go head-to-head with something like the Porsche Macan EV? I'll see all of you later.